So as part of the series that we're doing, talking about changing over my concealed carry, I told you we'd do a comparison video where we'd take a look at this dimensionally as well as shooting-wise against the Glock 43X, which is oftentimes mentioned as a contemporary of the SIG P365 variant. I will say, and we'll show you here in a minute, that there are some competitors out on the market that are more similar in size, if not exactly the same size as a P365, and we'll take a look at those as well. But today we're going to do some shooting, not only myself, I've got a guest shooter who's going to assist me as well. We're going to compare our results with the Glock 43X versus the P365 and have some discussion about that. So first we're going to look at it side by side with the Glock 43X, which is the main comparison we're going to do in this video. And you're going to see that both of these handguns are virtually identical in terms of their thickness. They've got that slimmer slide and frame configuration, which will make them better for carry. You can see that the Glock has a longer slide and not that much, depending on how you line them up, if you line them up tip of the beaver tail or not. But it is a bigger gun. It feels like a bigger gun in hand, and it also has the longer grip. Now, this comes with a standard 10-round capacity mag, but there's readily available aftermarket mags for 15. Comparing that to the 365, you do see that my pinky does touch the bottom of the grip, but not quite as solidly. And you can see, taking a quick look at the sights, it's very much a front sight dominant type of setup, which is what I prefer. Looking at the sights here on the Glock 43X, the back sight's very visible. Harder for me to see the front sight with that setup, but both very nice sight picture either way. Now we're going to look at the Springfield Hellcat, and if you look at the dimensions on this next to the SIG, it does look almost identical. And you'll see, looking at it, that it's got a little bit less length in terms of the way it sets up with my pinky finger. One thing I don't like about the Hellcat is that its standard magazine protrudes so far from the bottom of the actual grip of the gun. I don't like that typically. But in terms of looking at these, you'll see that, again, these have that similar narrow slide and thickness scenario. Looking at the magazine, the Hellcat does one-up the P365 by offering a standard 13-round magazine, so one more. So that's something to consider. And the last one that we're able to stack it up next to today was the Ruger Max 9, and this is a newer firearm. Again, similar in thickness. It looks like the slide width's a little bit thicker, but in terms of just the overall size of the gun, will it be a combination pocket gun inside the waistband? It definitely looks like it. You'll notice it does have the thumb safety, and that is something that I would order the version without it myself. But Ruger is pretty big on offering thumb safeties on most of their models, unless you don't want it. And that's just how they've typically rolled on these firearms. But taking a look at this, this will be one that we're going to want to shoot. And it looks like, again, meant to compete with that. Now, this has a standard 10-round magazine. And my guess is that availability of mag guts kits and things like that are going to be there for you if you want to get a little bit of increased capacity. One thing I want to also mention and point out when we talk about these videos that compare one particular gun against another particular gun, how do you really declare a winner? There's so many variables involved. What are you using for? Is it in the waistband carry? Is it not? What's your body type? Some guys can appendix carry. I can't, because I'm too robust for that. Do you like a certain trigger? Do you not? These are all variables that come into play when we're looking at evaluating one firearm against another. The only thing you could really say is, hey, do they both function flawlessly? Do they both work well with various types of ammo and magazines and that? And in the case of this 43X versus the SIG P365, these are both firearms that have never had a failure in their lifetime, so there is that to point out. Go ahead. So how we're going to run this test is real simple. There's 4 circles on each of these targets. Ignore the large one. And each of us are going to shoot the 43X at the top 2. First on the left, 10 shots going at a accurate pace, I would say. And then 10 shots going on the right at a faster pace. Then repeat the same thing on the bottom 2 using the P365. So what you see Spencer doing right now is working on those top 2 targets, shooting the 43X. And now we're going to see what kind of difference,
now we're going to
if
shoot
any,
that SIG.
there is in shooting the SIG P365. He's going to start with the lower left, and then after 10 shots, work his way to the lower right at a faster pace. So it's not as rapid fire as you can do, but it is a more deliberate and hurried pace with that scenario. So this is what we're doing, and each of us are doing that. So each of us are using the same protocol. And here you can see the 43X up top. Spencer shot that fairly well, as you'd expect. It's one of his carry guns. On the bottom's the P365, and he did not shoot that as well. We'll hear a little bit more about that later. So now here I go. I'm using the Glock 43X, shooting at the top left target. And as you can see, without being redundant, I am using a pace that's based on getting some accuracy here. And then we're going to follow that up with a faster pace at the upper right target, which you see getting hit right now. And then we're going to turn around. We're going to use the P365 and the same protocol here. Now, I have a lot of trigger time with the P365, and I'm used to that flat 90-degree pull trigger. However, it's something that does take some getting used to, and so it's a definite advantage for me in shooting both guns, just being used to that SIG, and Spencer is not as of yet. But here you see my Glock 43 target on the left, the faster pace on the right. Obviously, that opens up a bit. And here you see the 365 lower left, and again, opening up with a faster pace as we go. I think it's worth noting that every shot that both of us took with both of these firearms would have been center of mass and very deadly against would-be attackers in a self-defense situation. And because neither of these are meant to be a target gun, you'd have to say that they're both very effective in the role for which we're using them. So you're going to take another shot with this 365 SIG?
Yeah, hopefully I can do a little better this time.
Well, let's see.
A little better, not super great. Not used to the trigger on this thing. I think I'm more used to the Glock 43X trigger for sure, but this is a very nice gun. I like this thing. I have to get more used to it.
Shoot it some more.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So it looks like you shot that Glock 43X a tad bit better than the P365.
I did. I'm definitely more used to the Glock trigger. I don't have a lot of experience with the flat 90-degree trigger, and yeah, the break is just different on that gun as well. And with the gun so small, just the way you hold it and exactly all the tiny little movements that go into how you shoot it, the trigger just made that much difference for me, I think. So,
a little bit of an adjustment, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
I thought you were shooting it pretty well by the end, though.
Yeah, I had a couple good shots at the end for sure, but yeah, I need to figure out that trigger break, I think, for sure.
Now, you've got a pocket carry. Talk about what kind of gun that is.
So I have an LCP2, and that is 380. It's made by Ruger, and yeah, that's, I guess, the form factor of that one is just really nice for carry because you can just slip it in your pocket. It's completely concealed for the most part.
Gotcha. And what does that hold?
That holds 6 rounds.
6 rounds? Okay.
That the difference there, that's gonna take a lot of people out of buying an LCP2 right away, I think, because having 12 rounds or 10 rounds versus the 6, I mean, that's a big selling point to a lot of people.
Sure.
I think.
Well, I appreciate you coming out and indulging me and shooting some 9mm with me today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks.
Right. Guys, we also mentioned in a prior video segment about the 365 magazine choices, and one of the magazine choices I had was a factory 12-round magazine that was upped to a 14-round magazine through the use of the Mag Guts spring kit, which we covered that. And having put several hundred rounds through this magazine with all sorts of different types of ammo so far, hollow points, plus P, round nose FMJ, flat nose FMJ, and mixed magazines as well as all sorts of different configurations, flawless, 14+1. So happy with that so far. So I want to thank you once again for joining me today on Gun News and Reviews. We'll add bits and pieces to this series as we go along. And as always, very interested in your comments, share your experiences, and suggestions for how we can show you something that maybe we didn't show you. For more gun news and reviews, and of course your news updates, please subscribe to Gun News and Reviews.